Thank you, Nigel. Morning, morning everybody. Welcome to the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board. My name is Councillor Tom Smith and I'm the Vice Chairman of the Board. The Chairman, Councillor Rob Parker, sends his apologies. So for today's meeting, I'm chairing it on his behalf. Welcome to members in attendance and also to all officers attending both here in the Council Chamber and on Teams. The video feed of this meeting is being broadcast live via the County Council website, and I'd also like to welcome any members of the public and press who are either present here today or watching online. Welcome to the following Executive Councillors and Executive Support Councillors who are in attendance today. Councillor Mark Whittington, who is the Executive Support Councillor for Resource Communication and Commissioning. And welcome to the following members of the corporate leadership team who are present today, which is Andrew Crookham, Executive Director for Resources, who is attending via Teams. Welcome also to the following senior officers who are present today. Andrew McLean, Assistant Director, Corporate Transformation, Programming and Performance. John Wicken, Assistant Director, IMT and Enterprise Architecture. Paul Smith, who is the Council's new Interim Assistant Director of Corporate Property. I would like to begin with a health and safety announcement. There is no fire drill planned this morning, so in the event of fire alarm, we need to leave the council chamber through the rear doors and leave the building through the reception into the front car park, where we will await further instructions. Can I please remind everybody to ensure their mobile devices are either on silent or they're switched off. Also, when you're invited to speak, can you please ensure that you switch your microphone on, otherwise those attending the meeting via Teams and members of the press and public listening to our meeting online won't be able to hear you. Please be aware that your microphones are also very sensitive, and please speak directly into them when you wish to speak. If you wish to ask a question during the course of the meeting, please raise your hand and Nigel West, Head of Democratic Services and Senior Scrutiny Officer, will make a note who wishes to speak. Apologies for absence and replacement members. Emily, do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillor Parker, Councillor Hill, Councillor Bootroyd and Councillor Spratt. And if you can also note Debbie Barnes and James Drury's apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Do councillors have any declarations of interest? Members are reminded they need only declare any relevant interests which are not on their declared on their declaration of pecuniary interest form. Do members have any declaration of interest? Seeing none. Minutes of the meeting of February the 24th, 2022. This is to confirm and sign the minutes from the last meeting of the board on February 24th, 22 as a correct record. Do I have a proposer and a seconder for the minutes? Councillor Kendrick. Thank you very much. We'll now vote on the minutes. All those in favour, please show. It looks unanimous, but I will ask any against and any abstentions. Seeing none. Chairman's announcements. I attended the meeting of the Executive on the 1st of March on behalf of the Chairman and presented the Board's comments on the Revenue and Capital Budget Monitoring Report and the Q3 Performance Report. In relation to our comments on the Q3 performance and the number of children in care being lower than other areas, it was highlighted at Executive that the new data that had just been published, which confirmed that Lincolnshire remained low in comparison to our statistical neighbours, and the Executive Director for Children's Services was confident that the threshold was set at the right level. The Executive challenged whether the target for this measure was appropriate, given it had not been met, and it was highlighted by the Chief Executive that the target had been set before the government had mandated all local authorities to take a proportionate share of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, and that there was maybe a need to revisit the target so that it reflected the national mandate. This target could be a matter for the board to consider when it receives the Q4 performance report at our June meeting. As you all may be aware, James Drury, Executive Director for Commercial, will be retiring from the Council at the end of this month. James has been one of the key chief officers supporting the board since he joined the Council in 2019. Unfortunately, James is unable to attend today, but on behalf of the board, I would like to record our thanks for James and all the support he's given and wish him well in the future, and I'm sure everybody else here does as well. Executive Councillor announcements. Are there any Executive Councillor announcements? Seeing none. Oh, is he? Oh, sorry. Councillor Wilson. Sorry, Councillor
Chairman,
Wilson. I didn't see. I apologise.
It's okay. I've not received anything from either Councillor Boutroyd or Councillor Hill. Thank you.
Thank you for that. There are no Chief Officer announcements, so consideration for call-in.
None received, Chairman.
Thank you, Emily. And do we have any consideration of councillor calls for action?
No, none received, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, on to the substantive items of the agenda, the Bikeability Cycling Proficiency Procurement. This item is a pre-decision scrutiny item prior to the decision by the Executive Council for Highways, Transport and IT between the 29th and the 31st of March. I'd like to welcome Chris Miller, Deputy Head of Environment, who is attending today in the Council Chamber to present the report. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. Firstly, by way of explanation of why this report and pre-decision scrutiny is coming here rather than to highways, scrutiny is as much as a time frames issue in that the procurement time frame to be able to get a contractor in to deliver the programme and for them to mobilise meant that the time frame precluded going to highways, so legal have advised that bringing it to this board committee was appropriate. So the report in front of you is quite simply the reprocurement of the Bikeability programme, which many of you will recall from perhaps your own childhoods as the Cycling Proficiency programme, providing training and bike skills to primary school children in the main, although there is options for secondary school children too at the lower years. It's a fully funded programme by the government to the value of 1.5 million over a 5-year period. We are looking to go out to procurement for the next phase of delivery to begin at the start of the new academic year on in September, in autumn. There isn't really a great deal more I can tell you about the programme. It is obviously a bikes training programme for primary school children, and we're just looking for the scrutiny decision to allow the procurement to take place. Many thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Do members have any questions? Councillor Pepper.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm happy to support the recommendation. There's nothing not to support really, but I may have missed it, but what I couldn't see in the report was any connection with Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership. I mean, one would have thought, I'm sure the contractor outspoken are very professional, know what they're doing, but I'd have thought there'd been some kind of communication with the Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership, if only to sort out safe locations, where to cycle and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, indeed. It is delivered in hand with Lincolnshire Road Safety Partnership. Some councils may be aware that previously the programme was delivered in-house through that programme in any case, but it was felt to be too resource intensive, which was why the decision was made back in, I think it was 2017, to outsource this.
Councillor Dilks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the report. I support what Nigel says. It's a no-brainer, really, having read the report. But I just wondered, out of interest, and possibly, I'm sure most of us did cycling proficiency. I certainly did when I was a kid. I also sort of taught it at my local school many years later. I'm sad to say it was so many years ago, it was still called cycle proficiency then. But just as sort of as a volunteer. But the question I really had was what proportion of children who are eligible actually get access to the system right now? I see it's about 4,000 children, but I wasn't sure, you know, what proportion that was of children. You know, is it high or low, or and is there any sort of resistance from schools at all to sort of say they don't want to take part, or are they enthusiastic? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dales. I don't have the figures, I'm afraid, in terms of the proportion of children that it would cover, but it is obviously a well-regarded and well-respected programme. I think the main barrier is at the level 3 stage, which is the lower end of secondary school, whereby the difficulty in delivery is due to the curriculum constraints. But across the primary schools network, it's very well regarded, and obviously we can deliver it into independent schools as well, and also occasionally home learning. So hopefully we can cover as broad a spectrum of children as possible.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I would be interested in those figures if you could get them, because you know it's not just. Of course, it's about safety, promoting safety, but it's also about promoting cycling. You know, into their adult years, hopefully. You know, and or at least I'd hope it's about that. You know, so you know, I think it is a big, important thing. That we should, you know, that we should support as much as we can. Thank you.
Councillor Marfleet.
Morning, Chairman. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a brilliant thing. I mean, anything to encourage kids to get on their bike and go out and explore the countryside or explore wherever they like or gang up. It's all, you know, it's all good fun. Remember my youth on it. One of my, the one thing I did sort of wonder is, because there is no what I call actually what they are taught. And the area that sort of, as a father of 3 kids, that always seems to hit my pocket is the maintenance side of bikes. And I wondered actually, does the sort of training give them a bit of an understanding of the maintenance and how a little bit of maintenance can save daddy a lot of money? Or not only that, damaged bikes along a journey. And I just think that it's not just all about a bike, it's actually how you maintain it. Do we do anything on that?
Thank you, Councillor Marfleet. My understanding is that yes, that maintenance of the cycle and good repair is built into the course, but I will clarify that with our scheme lead internally and make sure he gets back to you to confirm.
Councillor Kendrick.
Thanks, Chairman. I know I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but in connection with road safety and children, is there a similar scheme for all the children who don't bike but who actually walk? I seem to remember years ago, and we probably all remember the Green Cross Code and that sort of thing, to make sure that children who are walking crossing roads were safe. Is there a similar scheme for that?
Thank you, Councillor. Not that I'm aware of, delivered by the County Council at present.
Councillor Strangle.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Kendrick gives his age away there. Was it Charlie Says? Was it something like that? Yes, I fully support it. It's just a comment, really. I fully support this. I think it's an excellent thing to support. Certainly wasn't available in my day. It was a school of hard knocks, I'm afraid. I wish it had been. I would have suffered less bruises than I did trying to stop crashing into fences and things like that. But yeah, I fully support it anyway, Chairman. Thank you.
Councillor Wotton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, is there any part of this new scheme, this new Bikeability scheme, that teaches children on how to ride on the footpath? Because many locations now, children do not ride on the road because it's considered too dangerous. And we've got the increasing sections now of cycleways on footpaths. Is that part of the programme?
I'm not aware of whether it is or it isn't, I'm afraid, Councillor Wotton. Obviously, with there being more and more opportunities to cycle away from the actual being in the road, obviously cycling on a footway isn't encouraged, but where there is designated space to do so, then absolutely. Again, I will check with the scheme lead just to make sure that that is something that is covered. But I would expect all forms of cycling and how to do so in the traffic environment is covered in levels 1 and 2. Certainly in level 3, they start to look at how to cycle on roads which include roundabouts and traffic lights and so on, rather than just being the basics of starting and stopping and pedalling in a straight line.
Yep, of course you can.
Yeah, certainly in the Grantham areas, you know, Chris, Sustrans were encouraging and supported the extension of footways around Grantham. I mean, comparison between cycling in Grantham and cycling in a beautiful countryside around Louth is totally different. It's very dangerous in the town, so I would encourage more cycleways, including in towns on using the footpaths as well.
Yep, Councillor Macy.
Thank you, Chairman. What is the difficulties with trying to get the students into the level 3 side of things? Because I know more and more as you're getting into the sort of upper school level that people are using their bikes much more. We've seen it, you know, where I live in Skegness, there has been accidents where people aren't actually wearing cycle helmets. And so to try and encourage that to happen more, and obviously we're much more green agendas now, it would be good to try and see a bit more of a push into that level 3 and the reasons why it's not happening now.
Thank you, Councillor Macy. Yeah, as I alluded to earlier, the main constraint is the ability to deliver it into the schools because it's up to the school to pick up the scheme. We obviously promote it as hard as we can all through Outspoken currently and whoever the new provider will be. Certainly it was an area of difficulty when we were providing it in-house. We were very low levels of take-up and Outspoken have been able to exceed those, but it's still a difficulty mainly because of those curriculum constraints as to when do you fit it and program it into the school day when they have obviously all their other subjects to cover and with heavy emphasis on catch-up at the minute as well. After the last 2 years, you know, the next couple of years of delivery at level 3 might be difficult.
Not seeing any further questions, so the actions required. The Overview Scrutiny Board is invited to consider the attached report to determine whether the Board supports the recommendation to the Executive Councillor as set out in the report and to agree any additional comments to be passed to the Executive Councillor in relation to this item, which we've done. The recommendation to the Executive Councillor is set out on page 21 and is as follows. That the Executive Councillor for Highways and IT approve the reprocurement of the Bikeability service for Lincolnshire. The comments of the Board discussion on this report have been recorded by the Senior Scrutiny Officer to be passed to the Executive Councillor. Can I have a proposer and a seconder for the recommendation? Thank you. All those in favour? It looks unanimous, but I'll ask. Any against and any abstentions? That's carried. Right. Turning now to item 8, the Transformation Programme update. This item sets out an update on the Transformation Programme, including a focused overview on the Adults Improvement and Development projects. Excuse me. I would like to welcome Claire Rowley, Head of Transformation, and Chris Erskine, Principal Social Worker, Adult Care and Community Wellbeing, who are attending today in the Council Chamber to present the report and provide a presentation. We also have Andrew McLean in attendance for this item. Over to you, Claire and Chris.
Thank you very much. And if I could go to the first slide. Thank you, Nigel. So as Councillor Smith has said, we've come to provide an update and a focus on our Adults Improvement and Development project and also agree those future reporting requirements into OSMB. So the Transformation Programme brings together some of our most high-profile projects to ensure that you as council membership have greater visibility, corporate oversight and accountability of key activity, assurance of funding being spent on council priorities, and also confidence that benefits are being measured, monitored and realised. We have for many years been excellent at service-led transformation as a county council, enabling us to be a strong council with nationally recognised services. What we want to do is to continue to build that on the success for all parts of the council. So this slide was just put together to as a reminder of the agreed focus of the Transformation Programme as a whole. We did bring this to you in December, so I won't go through all the points, but the main focus is to deliver council policy and corporate priorities, continue to contribute to the sustainability of the organisation, and also have a focus on those high complexity and high risk projects that require a different approach to delivering them. If we could go to the next slide, please. What we wanted to do was highlight some of the aspects that have been achieved so far. So the savings through the Smarter Working programme. We've seen significant reductions in travel and printing costs that has led to a reduction in those service level budgets. We have planned savings of £900,000 from the Adults Improvement and Development project that we'll hear more from Chris shortly. There's cost avoidance that we have planned for through the Children in Care and Special Educational Needs and Disability High Needs project. These are being met through the aim of our Children in Care Transformation Programme, which is about keeping children within our county and that move from those high cost out of county placements. We are also going to have budget savings from our business support review of 817,000 been achieved through a review of our ESO and MSO service. Then if we could go to the next slide, please, Nigel. The agreed scope of the transformation programme was brought to you at the December meeting, so I won't go through each project individually. I just wanted to share the key points from the high-level plan, which shows where we are working towards for each of these projects. All of our projects clearly link to the corporate plan aspirations. Within red, you'll see that link to high aspirations through the Special Educational Needs and Disability High Needs project. This project has enabled us to better understand the demand across high needs, identifying opportunities to respond differently to demand and support in setting a new inclusive ambition for high needs with partners, all with a view to ensuring that the best outcomes for our children and young people are delivered in a sustainable way. Under green on your screen are all those projects that fall under enabling everyone to enjoy life to the full. These group of projects provide us with a focus on increasing independence in our communities and choice to control the growing demand and increasing costs through early intervention with an aim of continuing to improve outcomes for our communities, stabilising and avoiding escalating costs and making savings wherever possible to manage future cost pressures. So under there we have Adults Improvement and Development, our Children in Care project and also our educational travel. Under blue, these projects all link to our Provide Good Value Council Services aspirations and have been set up to improve how we deliver our functions, ensuring efficiency and effectiveness of processes whilst reducing costs wherever possible, all to ensure we are working to shape and prioritise services around residents' needs. You'll see there's a number of projects. CSO is Corporate Support Optimisation. This is a new programme of work that includes the existing projects of reviewing business support, the Business World Redesign Project and Corporate Support Services, all with a view of optimising our support services. We've also got our customer strategy, which is working to achieve our vision of delivering strong joined-up services that are designed to enable us and ensure that we meet our customers' current and future needs. Our digital strategy implementation, which is working to achieve our vision of providing intuitive, simple and accessible digital services. Our business intelligence strategy implementation, which has a vision to enable improved decision-making through better understanding of our services, partners, people and place. People strategy implementation, working towards our vision to be an employer of choice in Lincolnshire, and finally our Smarter Working programme of work, which I'm sure you're all very well versed on. At this point, I'll hand over to Chris, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you very much, Chairman. It's really good to be here to talk about the Improvement Development Programme. If we can move to the next slide, please, Nigel. So, this programme has been set in the context of adult care and community wellbeing performing well over a number of years, and that's enabled the Directorate to achieve a balanced budget. There is uncertainty around COVID, and we've been working really closely with our frontline teams, our management team, to look at opportunities to intervene earlier, to think about how we can prevent, reduce, delay the need for formal support, and really to support people to live good, full and independent lives while maximising their independence. The data we gathered at the initial part of the project really supported us in understanding where there were opportunities to develop as we went forward. So we looked at an ambitious programme of work. If you can move on to the next slide, please, Nigel. Thank you. So really ambitious programme of work to look at how we can reframe what we do in terms of our information advice offer, embedding strength-based approaches right across adult care, but in particular at the front door, which I'll come on to more. We looked at the embedding strength-based approaches within our learning disability and adult frailty conversations as well as thinking about how we do that at points of review. So the evidence we gathered informed our programme of work. So it's been really co-produced with people within our teams and our leadership team as well. If we could move on to the next slide, please, Nigel. Thank you. So, as I said, been a really ambitious programme of work that's showing real progress. and showing some positive outcomes. At the front door, that was one of the first places we started at. Over a 3-month period, we worked really closely with our teams there to really embed a different conversation with people in terms of when people came to speak to adult care, it was about supporting them to find solutions and making sure that they had the right support at the right time earlier in the journey. What we've seen as a result of that piece of work, if we could move on to the next slide, please, Nigel, is an increase in the number of people that are supported at the Customer Service Centre. So we've seen a reduction in terms of the number of people that are actually supported at that point and don't need to go on for formal adult care needs assessments. So again, it frees capacity for our workforce to do quality work supporting the people in our communities. We've also seen people supported earlier in the journey through the wellbeing service. Again, very, very positive. We've seen the number of people that have needed to go on for long-term support from adult care and community wellbeing reduce. So again, supporting people in creative, different ways at an earlier point in the journey. And we've also seen when people have contact from our practitioners at review, we've again been able to work really closely with them to think about options around technology and around, again, connecting people with their community so they can live a full and independent life in as much as possible. If we could move on to the next slide, please. So, to give an overview of some of the work that we've been doing, the ambition for adult care was developed and we were able to sort of demonstrate quite clearly areas to engage with our workforce and actually be able to demonstrate the impact of the work we're doing as well. Practitioners have been very engaged in the approach. We've worked with over 50% of our teams now, with the remaining 50% of teams will be worked at in the coming 6 months. So again, seeing a positive impact. 89% of our practitioners have told us that the work that they're doing is having a positive impact when they're working with people in communities. The behavioural model of practice has been the real shift for us. So it's been thinking when we're working with our teams about actually what the work that they do is more than just do assessments and reviews. It's about the quality of the conversations that they're having with people and supporting people to understand that they do have strengths and opportunities to improve the quality of life. One of the key bits of work we've been doing is a skills transfer to ensure that we have future sustainability and we've got resilience within adult care in the organisation to make sure that we continue with the work we do in the coming months. We continue to see the positive impact that we've had over the period of time we've been working with teams. We've been updating some of our web pages as well to reflect the approach, and we've also have a prime performance approach as well, which is really looking at what's important to us, what we view as good, how do we move from good to excellent, and know when we've actually achieved that. So our teams have been working really closely with us, and we've been working with co-production network as well to inform all of this work. Our medium-term financial plan incorporates the net financial benefit of the programme. We've taken a wide view with this, including the work that's happening within extra care, expanding the scope of the reablement service, and ensuring that we're supporting people at early points in the journey. So the ambition is that we will achieve that £1.8 million cost benefit in the year 2024-25, and it will be staged over a number of years between now and then. But what we have seen through the work is the overall number of people requiring long-term support has been steadily reducing, so we can clearly see from our data that we're supporting people at an earlier point but in the right way. I've included a case study as well, if we could move on to the next slide, please, Nigel. So I'm always very mindful that it really brings it to life when we actually hear about the people we've been working with. There was one example of our practitioners through our trial work. So when we're working with teams, it's not a day in a classroom. We actually work intensively for a period of 6 to 8 weeks with them to actually really embed a different way of working. So that's that applied behavioural science element of how we can positively influence a situation. Traditionally, we were working with someone and there'd been a request for an increase in support for the person. And actually what we saw was a man who had a diagnosis of MS, had some impact on his memory, his mobility. He was really keen to be as independent as possible, but perhaps traditionally our interventions maybe wouldn't have supported that. So we started off by a more positive view of working with them. What's working well in your life? What do you want to achieve? And he told us that he was really missing accessing the community, and he would like to do more for himself. We worked with him to uncover that he would like to be more independent with cooking, found out what his interests were, so our practitioner supported him. But she supported him as well by using technology as a less intrusive way. So it was things like a smart speaker to actually be able to set timers to remind him, and actually for him to be able to communicate with people more effectively as well. And what that meant was he didn't need a support worker to come in and do that. So he was less tied to when that person would come in. And it meant that some of the support he had could be freed up to do the things he really wanted to do in the community as well. And time after time, the examples we have from teams really reflect this. So we're not just seeing it in the data, we're seeing it in terms of the work we're doing with teams to gather the stories. So it's really been about hearts and minds, and we're working really closely with our colleagues right across the system. So the Customer Service Centre with Circo, the Wellbeing Service, our health colleagues as well, because we believe that having this different conversation is something we ought to be aspiring to do right across the system. So I'm very happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Stringle.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you both for your presentation. Excellent to hear all the good work that's been done on behalf of the people that need your support within the county. Not wishing to criticise anything, but it would have been nice if we had had your slides on our laptops here. The problem is that looking at that right now, even with my pretty good eyesight, I don't need glasses to read that, but it's very difficult to actually pick it out, and it would have been nicer to be able to follow it through on the actual laptop in front of us here. It's not a criticism, but it's just a point that perhaps be useful, because then we could actually see exactly what you're talking about. But thank you very much for all your hard work.
Understood, Councillor. I'll make sure that everyone receives a copy of the slides. Thank you.
Councillor Dilks.
Yeah, I think Councillor Strangle's picked up my point, really. Thank you for your enthusiasm and the, the words that you told us, but I've got to say it was death by PowerPoint. And, a PowerPoint should really be an aid memoir with a few words on it, not as many words as you can get on a slide. And that's why I was going to ask, if the slides in fact were in the electronic pack, if I can call it that, which I've been unable to get into because of just so I'm on on the hard copy today, and the slides are not in that. So I would welcome getting the slides and having a chance to have a real look at some of the things that you alluded to. One question I did have, though, was on the earlier slide, and it was when Claire gave her presentation, was about the 25 children in care coming back into county, which I can understand is savings, represents savings and benefits possibly for those children. But I just wonder if you could remind me, and perhaps Councillor Kendrick might have comments as well, as to what are they coming back to? Is it, is it into these new sort of homes that we're seeing in the south of the county, popping up quite a lot of people buying houses and creating room for 3 or 4 children in a detached house? Sometimes, in my view, possibly not the most appropriate setting, but I'm not an expert. I just wondered, what are they coming back to? Thank you.
I'll try and help, Mr. Chairman. We're actually in the process of building some new units, and as members are well aware, anything that goes out of county, regardless of service, has a tremendous cost. And so if we can reduce that, but also it means if people are coming back into the county, they have greater access to family and friends. So it's a positive move, both financially and for the children. There are some cases, though, where there are some very specialist units that the county has to use outside of county, but the general thrust, in my understanding, is to bring things in-house for the greater benefit of both the children and, obviously, financially. Thanks, Chairman.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. If I could add as well, thank you. Yep, it might be good to next time bring a focus on the Children in Care project to you as well and give a bit more information on that from the project leads. But yeah, absolutely, anywhere our children are places, you know, assessed, it's highly regulated, everything is completely checked, but one of the main aims of the project here, this Children in Care project, is that we try to provide locally for care locally for children in Lincolnshire where appropriate and possible. So that, as Councillor Kendrick quite rightly pointed out, that they're closer to their networks and they're close to the people that they've grown up with as well. Thank you.
Councillor Marflett, I believe you wanted to speak as well.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, there's some great work in the Adults Transformation Programme ongoing at the minute. I think the key thing for me, and it can't be emphasised enough, in effect it's about a journey, and when that journey starts is when somebody needs some form of help, and the first point of call is in effect the front of house, as we said, which is the customer service centre. There is a question about the whole customer service centre in terms of, because it's sat under Circo, and in effect that contract comes up in 2024. I think there is the need to look at the arrangements there, because actually the last thing you want to do is lose, and I know we do two pays, etc., but there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be built up with those customer service centres to signpost people in the right area. So when that person makes that call, for me, there's two things. One, you need great signposting. And the second one is the assessments must be slick. And my own view is, with what's coming and the reforms from government and the fact that everybody is going to be sort of questioning the care cap and all the other bits, we have to really be incredibly quick and fast at assessments to know where to point somebody and also to actually get them into the right location. We cannot put enough effort into that, and I think the more that we really, in effect, get on top of that whole front door and assessment, actually relieves so much pressure. You've seen how much we can save, the sort of 2 million in that slot. Actually, if we get better and better, it will save more and more. And I think there is you've done a lot, there's a lot coming at us quite quick. So I would definitely keep the emphasis on those two areas of assessment and signposting, and deal with how we are going to be having an aspiring front of house post 2024. Thank you.
Councillor Brockway.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chairman. Look, it's very rare that I'm negative about something in this chamber, but I'm really sorry I have to be now. I'm really not happy with this report, and I almost think it needs to come back, and I'll tell you why. The written report tells us next to nothing, all right? Two sides. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. In the slides, and I agree, they were so wordy. I mean, I got next to nothing from them because I either listened to you or tried to read. You couldn't read it anyway, so they need to be redone. But then we've got references that you're not going to go through things, Claire, because there was a report in December. We're now in March. I've attended a lot of committees since then. I can't remember what was in that report in December. And had you wanted to do that, I understand why. You don't need to do the work twice. I would support you on that. But you needed to tell us that we should revisit that report to come to this committee properly prepared. So I've got worries there. I don't doubt the quality of the work, by the way. I have no doubt. I'm not slamming the work at all. It's the presentation this morning that is difficult. I'm a bit concerned that in the presentation too, the focus has been very, very heavily, we're cutting money here, we're cutting money there, but there hasn't been very much information come my way on the improvements to the service and how are we doing that without hurting people. And if I was a member of the public looking at those slides, I don't think I'd be very happy, to be honest. It was all money focused, and this is a public-facing committee, so I do think we have to balance. And the last thing I want to say is if I could just give an example of why I'm so concerned. on page 42 in the report, in the paragraph adult improvements, you don't need to go to it, I'll just read the sentence. The last sentence, with 50% of all teams having now been inducted into the new approach, we are already seeing a shift in demand. What does that mean? More, less, different type of shift, different services asked for? The problem with the presentation this morning, I'm going away having not really learnt very much. So I'm really sorry. I think it needs to come back. Okay, but please don't think I'm attacking the quality of your work. It's just for me. And also, and this is really nitpicking, this is terrible, some of us in here, including myself, have real difficulty hearing, and if you're speaking rapidly, you need to practice where you are with the mics. Okay, the speed and where you are is very important for people like Councillor Dilks and myself to pick up, and there are others in the chamber who are in the same position, so I'd be really grateful if we could do some work on that. Thank you. Sorry, I'm really sorry. I feel for you, but it's a scrutiny committee, I have to say it.
Councillor Whittington.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just got a little bit partly a little bit extra to what Councillor Kendrick said about children's services. The sort of units that Councillor Dilks was referring to when small houses are being converted in villages. I asked the very same question to Heather Sandy and Jenna Spencer about this, because I've got one in my division. The reality is the vast majority of children going into those are from out of county. These are small people who are setting these up. It's not the policy of LCC Children's Services to use these services. We try, where possible, to make full use of placing children, if we can, into either foster families or into adoptive families, and try and keep as low as possible the number of children that are in specific children's units. And the reality is the children's services, I'm sure Heather and Janet, if they were here, would say the same. We wouldn't use those providers. The issue potentially our children's services would be if there was an issue around safeguarding in any of those units, because at that point, our social services department would become involved at that point. So therefore, we have to be aware of them in case there is an issue, but we wouldn't be placing any of our children there. So I hope that clarifies and around that for you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alex.
Hi, thank you. Just about the adults improvement thing, does that include elderly people?
Yes, it includes older people, people of working age.
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
adults. It's just that as an observation, I noticed when you look on the adults safeguarding board, if you look on any kind of example, it's all people that are young adults. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. There doesn't seem to be any representation at all, really, of elderly people in any of my experience with these case studies. So I think that you should look at that in terms of representation, because surely it must be the far greater users of the service. So it seems silly that I'm even having to ask the question, I would say.
Absolutely. We've got some wonderful examples of the positive impact the work has had with older people as well as working age adults as well. So
have you got those with you now, or something you'd like to go through?
I can send them through.
Yeah.
Councillor Kendrick.
Thanks, Chairman. The one thing that I've taken away from the presentation is the fact, to use the jargon, it's been very person-centred in terms of individual cases. I think that's a good step, because so often in services, regardless of which service it is, it tends to be the system. It seems sometimes more important than actually delivering for an individual's needs. And I think if things can be more person-centred, then that's going to be of greater benefit to people and more flexible, rather than having a one-size-fits-all approach. If I've got that right, you're nodding, so I assume that I have got that message right. Thanks very much.
I've got a point. It goes back to what Councillor Marfleet was saying about assessments. I can use experience of another assessment regime that's not relevant to council. It's a national issue, and that's personal independence payment. And when you get things like assessments wrong, they go wrong in a big way, i.e. you have backlogs of the DWP quite 8 weeks, well, you're looking at a lot more than 8 weeks in reality. So as Councillor Moffat said, we really need to get in front of this and get in front of it quick. Otherwise, especially with the reforms as well, we're going to be in a heap of trouble. Not just in terms of the individuals that suffer because they're waiting for the assessment and decision of are they applicable for the county basically to pay for their care, or do they have to find money themselves? There's also the issue for us as a body corporate, which is the longer it takes, the more time it takes for officers, which means it's resourced, the more time you would potentially have to back pay the care provider, which is more money we haven't got. I take Councillor Brockway's point on the report. Actually, I must say when I was reading it, I was surprised it was only two slides myself, and I found it very difficult to glean information to ask a question from that. As Councillor Brooks said, I'm not decrying the work either of you do, because I know it's very, very difficult, and it's a very difficult service area to deal with, and it's only getting harder with the number of working age adults that you're having to deal with, because they're now actually becoming or will be in a number of years becoming the lion's share of who you deal with, because they're ever increasing. So I don't know how we can look at that in future, but I think it needs to be looked at if possible. The other point, and it's gone from my head, so bear with me a moment. No, it's completely gone. Right. Yeah, please, Andrew, yeah.
Hi, thanks for the comments, and thanks to Councillor Brockway too around the report. I think picking up on that, so what we want to do is get the balance of that report content so that we aren't repeating each time we come in, because we've got a planned schedule of being able to come to Overview and Scrutiny Management Board to keep you up to date. So I suppose because we're early into that process, it's helpful to get the feedback so that maybe we can at least refer back and add in references to previous presentations where we've gone into detail of the programme overall. So because I think we'd agree, we'd try and get a focus each area. So before it was special educational needs, today adult care, and didn't want to take the time up too much by trying to repeat the programme overall, but I suppose respecting the fact that there is that gap of several months in between to make sure we do give some of the content. I think also making sure that we do, picking up on the point, reference a lot of the outcome benefits as well as just the financials, because there's a lot of that goes on purely from a financial drive. So we will look to do that. But I suppose really keen to work with the committee to understand and get that balance right, and maybe in the pre-meetings have some of that discussion around certain areas beyond the physical project itself that we'll be giving an update on, but around the progress for the programme. And we do have the presentations available in advance, so we'll liaise with Democratic Services colleagues to make sure that you have those in advance of future presentations. But fully take on board the feedback, and we'll look to make sure the next schedule update that meets the needs, and you've got the appropriate overview of the programme, the content in front of you, and that the slides are easy to read and also aren't verbatim of what we're presenting. Thank you.
Thank you. You've also helped me because it's come back to my head now, so thank you. In your presentation, Claire, and yours, Chris, you made it sort of very clear that you're a bit like special educational needs. You're moving away from the more sort of, shall I say, traditional, formalised process where before you get help, you need to be assessed. You need this piece of paper to say, yes, you can have this. Now, have you had anybody sort of raise concerns about that? Because they're saying, well, yes, I'm getting support, but it's not formalised, it's not written down, so this can be taken away very quickly. Have you had any of those concerns, or is it something that's not actually cropped up?
I can answer that, Chairman. We've not had that crop up in the sense of when we're working with people, it's very much about trying to get a good outcome from them, but an early point. I think we would see that bearing out in complaints and things which we're not seeing happen at the moment, but it's something that we absolutely have to guard against and recognise that if people people are entitled to a full complex assessment, but it's really about supporting people to get the right information, the right advice at that early stage.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful, because that is it provides a level of context, because that is very different to say, and I'll use special educational needs again, because certainly from my experience and certainly others that have raised it with me in the past and sort of now, there is that level of concern of, well, you're deformalising a process, so my level of comeback or protection, should something change, isn't there. So now it's good to know that actually it's working well, that people are happy with a more informal process that reacts quicker. And I think that's important, that we sort of publicise that, as yes, it might not be as formalised, and yes, you are entitled to that formal process, but if we do things this way, the benefit is we can move quicker for you. And I think it's important that that comes across to clients and also in the report, because it's until the presentation this morning that wasn't there, but that's very helpful to know, so thank you. I'm not seeing any further questions. The actions required of the board are to review and comment on the contents of the report presentation and agree future reporting requirements. There it says in the paperwork, an update on the transformation programme is currently listed on the work programme for the 29th of September. Now I will go back to Councillor Brockway to see if she has anything alternative she would like to propose based on her comments.
No, that's fine. I mean, if it's coming back then, and in view of what you've just said, I'm more than happy to wait. I mean, it's a learning process. We've all got to learn. It's a new transformation process, but if we get it now in the beginning, then it'll go forward well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brockway. In that case, I propose the board has reviewed the report and the presentation, that we have received. We receive a 6-month update at our meeting on the 29th of September 2022, as currently listed on our work programme. Can you, if you're all in favour, can please show now? Looks unanimous, but I will ask any against and any abstentions. That's carried. Thank you very much, Claire and Chris. The next report is the Property Services Contract Year 6 report and interim for Year 7. The item sets out an update on the performance of the Property Services Contract with VINCI, excuse my pronunciation, Facilities Partnership Limited, at the end of Year 6 of the contract, with an interim report for Year 7. I'd like to welcome Stuart Wright, Contract Manager, Corporate Property, who is in attendance today in the Council Chamber to present the report, and also welcome Andy Finn, Head of Facilities Management, who is in attendance today in the Council Chamber to help answer any questions. We also have Paul Smith in attendance for the item. For this item. Over to you, Stuart.
Thank you, Chairman. So what I'm going to do is going to go through the highlights of the report, which updates the board on the performance of the property services contract with Vinci Facilities Partnership Limited, VFPL, at the end of Year 6, and with an interim report to Year 7, which is almost finished. So if we just move on to section 2.1 of the report, Service Manager's Assessment. So just picking up to the COVID-19 challenges, managing the impact of construction project timescales has been, COVID has impacted on that. So for example, staffing issues and the various lockdowns we've had during the COVID situation over the past 2 years. We've also had the loss of the collection, cafe collection, and the restaurant services of the quad, with the subcontractor pulling out. Continuing to support council activities in workplaces, provision of deep cleans, hand and surface cleaning facilities available to visitors and staff, and we also continue to work closely with public health on that. Just moving on to section 2.2 on health and safety. So positive interventions continue to be promoted by the One Team, and that can be evidenced in the chart in 2.2. Close calls continue to be evaluated and risks minimised, but as evidenced in some of the examples, these can be quite challenging. We continue to work with corporate health and safety groups within the council. Just moving on to section 2.3 around finance. So the contract is an NEC contract. It's option C, and therefore there is a pain and gain mechanism which incentivizes the contractor. There is an example of a table there which shows the pain and gain mechanism. The improvement in pay and gain share in Year 6 could be attributed to staff vacancy within the energy management team for a period, and reduced soft facilities management services during lockdown periods. The KPI performance of 96.2% overall also contributed to a greater share than in Year 5. The contract has both carrots and sticks. The low service damages are the financial sticks, and these help improve the timeliness of the services provided. Just moving on to section 2.4 around key performance indicators. So 96.2% overall for Year 6. Quarter 3 in Year 7 is showing a lower score. This lower score is attributable to failures in completing reactive work, maintenance work, and statutory work within contractual timescales. This should be set in context, as there are many thousands of work tasks delivered by VFPL, but as failure is set per item rather than a percentage of tasks, it is therefore a very strict KPI measure. Moving on to section 2.5 around SEND. So we continue working with KIR on SEND projects, and we're providing additional school places already, notably at Boston Endeavour and Bourne Willoughby. These have been completed last year. We also are working on several other SEND projects at various stages, some mid-construction expansion projects, and a number at pre-construction phase. Just moving on to capital receipts, section 2.6. Together with the KIR Estates team, we manage capital receipts. Our receipts are slightly under the target of 14 million for year ending 2021 to 22, but we anticipate a rise in capital receipts in Year 8, with further interest in Morton Estate to 1-2B. Just moving on to section 2.7 around COVID safety. So aside from what we've already covered in section 2.1, we also worked with North Stephen District Council to ensure business continuity of vital services, trucks, office spaces, kitchen facilities, toilets and communal areas were all made COVID safe. Moving on to section 2.8, which is VMOST. So we've got 4 new strategies covered within the VMOST, and these are reducing the carbon footprint of the estate, increasing the efficiency and effectiveness of the estate, grow, inspire and motivate our one team, deliver the corporate landlord model. We currently have bi-monthly meetings to review VMOST actions and achievements. Okay. Continuous improvements, we move to section 2.9. We continue to make improvements to the service. The water module on Concerto, implementation of V-forms to improve efficiencies, and improving information for new starters, and holding more frequent toolbox talks and training sessions. The commissioner service was also insourced back to VFPL from a subcontractor, which will provide a more efficient, professional and reliable service to LCC. Just moving on to section 2.10 around awards. We won the prestigious PFM award for Partners in Corporate due to our collaborative working ethos. And that concludes the highlights of the report. Thank you.
Councillor Brockway.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you. This was very interesting, actually. I mean, some of the detail you gave about Legionella, I mean, that's something I wouldn't even think about. And it's very useful to have that coming forward. Just one slight, I wonder if you could just expand slightly for me. One small point on page 47, the bottom paragraph. It talks about a lower score. Now, I understand that there are reasons for some KPI delays and occasional failures, especially with COVID and things like that. But 2 of the failures for completion on time were statutory. So it says, so failures in VFPL completing reactive work within time scales set in the contract, and 2 failures completing statutory work within time scales. So basically, I'd like to know what those failures were, what was that statutory work, but at least what is the impact if statutory work isn't completed on time? Is there any impact on people and on the council? What's the comeback? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, I'll try to answer that if I may. So from a statutory point of view, we carry out there are a lot of statutory checks that we do. I don't know the specific ones that we're talking about here, but we can get potentially a failure under the contract if a particular item isn't carried out in exactly the month that's required. So, for example, talking about the Legionella, as you said, the water temperatures have to be tested every month. Now, there is, under the legislation, there is some leeway in that, but our KPIs specify the month. So if it's that month plus a day, then that would represent a failure. So it's not actually a failure in relation to them not completing something that's statutory. It's actually a failure in the fact that we're trying to hold them to a high standard.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Dilks.
Thank you. Thanks for your report. As colleagues said, it's very, very interesting and welcome. I was just particularly interested in bottom of page 49, the VMOST, to quote the word, and the strategy that is about reducing the carbon footprint of the estate, which I'm sure we all welcome. I just wondered if you could say a little bit more about that. I appreciate it's not the, not an agenda item, but I just wondered what, do we have statistics of what the carbon output is currently for the estate, and sort of what we've achieved so far, what is the plan to reduce the carbon footprint, the footprint of the estate, and is there a sufficient budget to do that? Thank you.
Again, I'll answer that one if I may. Yes, it's a good point. We have got there are strategies. If we could go into a lot more detail on that, but there is a green master plan in relation to what we're needing to achieve. There is also an action plan based around that and a roadmap. So basically, what we need to do to achieve the green master plan. As a council, we've actually agreed to become carbon neutral by 2050. And there's also another target in 2035, which is approximately 75%. So your point is a really good one. If I'm answering honestly, the answer is no. We haven't got an identified budget for this, and that is something that we're putting business cases forward for, which includes where there's been government government schemes that we've been able to bid for, but unfortunately we've not been able to find the match funding for those. So I think it needs to be acknowledged that for us to achieve what we have undertaken to do, there is going to need to be more funding ability, and also just on that as well, I'm also putting a report forward in relation to resources. There's a resource issue that needs dealing with as well, which we are working on. But to answer your question, yes, there is a plan. There is a way for us to get to that plan, but the funding is lacking at the moment, and the resource issue, and those are the things we're working on.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think that is an important, concern, frankly. I was aware, looking at the budget for the coming year of the whole council's budget on the Green Master Plan, there was, I believe it was 300,000 was set aside or in the budget last year for the Green Master Plan launch, and most of that money has been spent, and there's not much sort of being carried forward to implement, in my view, the Green Master Plan that I'm sure we all recognise. We need to be putting into action, if I could put it that way. Thank you.
I'm sure Emily and others will have captured that, Councillor Dilks, and it will certainly get noted to the executive, because I certainly understand the concern you express around, and thank you, Andy, for being very open and honest and saying, look, we do want to do it, but actually, do we have a budget? No, we don't. That's information that we need to be aware of at Scrutiny, so we can actually do our job here as the Scrutiny Committee, so thank you for that. Does anybody else have any questions? No, Councillor Pepper.
Being inquisitive, I suppose, on page 45, second paragraph down, it mentions about a waste collection vehicle colliding with a training tower. Presumably that's a fire and rescue training tower, is it?
I believe it was, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing any further questions? So, thank you, Stuart. Thank you, Andy, for the report. The actions required of the board are as follows: to seek assurance on the performance of the property services contract and to provide feedback and challenges required. Well, I certainly think we've done both of those. I propose the board has been assured of the performance of the property services contract and that we receive an update in March 2023 on the performance at the end of the year 7 of the contract with an interim report on year 8. All those in favour, please show now. And I will ask, but I don't see there's any against and any abstentions. That's carried. Item 10, which is the update on IMT services, user engagement and project portfolio. This item provides an update on IMT user engagement on the user engagement team and provides a highlighted project being commissioned through IMT. I'd like to welcome Alison, and I'm terribly sorry because it's gone from my head. I'm terribly sorry, my pronunciation's gone.
Sorry, it's Capathanasis.
Sorry, I apologise, Alison. Please accept my apologies. Head of Services at Delivery and User Engagement, and Donna Fryer, Head of Portfolio and Resources, who are attending today via Teams to present the report. We also have John Wickens in attendance for this item. Over to you, Alison and Donna.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Chairman. So the report that we're delivering today consists of 2 parts. So I'm going to hand over to Alison first off to take you through Appendix A, and then I'll pick up Appendix B following that. So Alison, I'll hand over to yourself.
That's brilliant, thank you. Good morning. We have submitted a highlight report of the work over the past year for the service delivery and user engagement team. That team is made up of IT business partners, IT systems advisors, and a contract and vendor management officer. So to start the summary of activities, we've been working on our remote working technology, including an upgrade and some troubleshooting in that area. This has resulted in the amount of connectivity issues dropping from 40 calls per day down to 15 on average. And that has actually come down further this week to an average of 10. The user engagement team managed approximately 774 escalations for the year 1st of January 21 to January 22. These escalations are either calls that need a quick resolution or require a different solution, which is discussed internally with LCC IMT and the Circo technical teams. The volume has been higher than previous years due to MDM migration, as well as the sustained increase in tickets for users working remotely. The projects commissioned by this team for the year have been 40, and there's a further breakdown into what areas they've raised projects on behalf of. New software requests received have been a total of 66 coming through our team. The fresh service tickets, so that's our internal call logging system, 760 tickets have come through that way over the year. The number of SharePoint sites, sites created by the team have been 26 on behalf of the business, and they've assisted the business in growing those SharePoint sites. The number of IMT newsletters issued, 12 over the course of the year, and the number of comms issued out to the business has been 51. Those comms include proactive comms about different features coming on board, or reactive comms with regards to any incident or downtime for users. And that's normally done in conjunction with the comms team. The development of the 365 Champions Network, which has provided support and information so they provide support and information to the network via a dedicated Teams channel. So they push information through this Teams channel. The 365 champions then go out into their teams and disseminate that information further, mainly to do with 365, but it's a two-way street, so those champions will come back in with queries or asking for attendance to different team meetings, which members of the team can attend and talk about 365 projects, perhaps provide a demo, sometimes have some use cases that they can work on with the team. So it's a very interactive network. They've assisted the Smarter Working program in defining the way our managed workspaces are to be set up and implemented. They've supported the coroner's service to enable hybrid courtrooms in LCC premises, and utilising the appropriate technology. They've also facilitated the setting up of exam devices, as exam software is disabled due to security reasons. We now have a dedicated room set up in county offices where people can go into those rooms and take exams on LCC devices, but it doesn't go via our network, so it doesn't cause any concerns. We've supported various business areas with the procurement and reprocurement of software solutions. Some examples of those are the HR learning management system, an application tracking management system, and Stopford Register solution. We've also contributed to the starters, movers and leavers process conception and business analysis, which we've now handed over to the transformation team, who will be working on that wider project across the council. Digitalisation with the Matrix transportation team, they worked on that, and they supported the team manager in digitalisation of some processes in their area using the 365 applications. They've also assisted with some large-scale support issues and escalations within the 0 to 19 service. The adult mental health practitioner service implementation, they've been assisting with that, bringing in a new 24/7 service. They've also helped with the digitalisation within children's centres. So this piece of work was to do with reducing the use of paper within the children's centres for health and safety checks. So they've procured tablets and setting those tablets up to be able to perform those tasks that were done via paper previously. They've also created the IMT intranet site and supported central learning services to allow them to be able to provision exams. We have a summary of the vendor and software contracts officer role and the work he's been performing over the year. So there's various breakdowns of the savings that have been made or the contracts that are managed. And then we'll move on to Nulia Works platform. So Nulia Works, which we've previously brought to the Scrutiny Committee, Nulia Works is a digital enablement platform, and that's designed to meet organisational challenges of adopting and embedding sustainable behavioural change in the use of the 365 products and tools. So what Nulia does is, through data insights, it understands how each user is interacting with the 365 applications, features and functions, and it delivers through machine learning a personalised guided experience of the next steps recommendations, and prompts when using the software. It also prompts you on better ways of undertaking activities and to highlight features the user has not used before. Furthermore, there's instant access to training, and it's available to every user based on their depth of knowledge. Nulia Works has a variety of training materials which are made available, including PDFs, images, infographics, videos, and audio. So that's either through Nulia web portal or a Teams integrated app. So it's very easy to access. These resources accompany every activity in the platform, and there are also 20 Microsoft application how-to guides that can be accessed via Nulia Works. And these resources are ideally placed to guide users who are new to a specific application or as an aid when carrying out infrequent tasks. So the rollout of Nulia Works across the council took place on week commencing the 17th of January, and it was to those users who completed their MDM migration. So currently there are 3,726 users across the council with Nulia Works license, with additional users being added each week as their MDM migration is completed. It also has several reporting features that can assist in the identification of adoption of Nulia Works. It is worth noting that even if a user doesn't log into Nulia, the data is still there. The insights are still there for us to pick up so that we can tell the adoption of the different applications. And if we identify that some applications are not being adopted, we can target training, or we can send out additional training material, encourage the 365 champions in those specific areas to maybe circulate some information, or we can do some case studies. So it does help with targeting and onboarding different service areas. There is a breakdown of the initial outcomes assigned to users. So these are assigned at the point of license allocation. So for instance, the following attainments can be achieved: getting started with 365, quick start for messaging in Teams, quick start in Teams calling, and so on. And in the report, there's a breakdown of the attainment or achievement levels in each area for our users. And so that's a roundup of Nulia, sorry. And the current concerns we have within our area at the moment is recruitment of IT staff, retention of IT staff, and current resource shortage in IMT as well as Circo. And then we have a roundup of Circo ticket volumes. So there's a separate, a member of our team comes on a 6-monthly basis with commercial, I believe, to talk about the KPIs and SLAs and the Circo contract. So not to detract from that, this is just a roundup of the Circo ticket volumes for the year. So for the year, total incidents raised have been 36,821. Service requests raised, so service requests would be things like, can I have a new device? Can I have a new application? So anything that they're requesting that's new. There have been 24,979 tickets. The VIP incidents raised have been 294, and requests raised are 242. And that's a roundup from my area. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah. Yes, please, John. Yes, please, John.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Alison for presenting her first paper to OSMB, always a nerve-wracking occasion.
I think Teams is on, which is why it's echoing.
Apologise, I switched audio off. But I am off apparently, but I'll just kill that first. I'll try again. That's the echo gone. So thank you, Alison. Always a nerve-wracking moment presenting your first report. Apologies, I hope to catch Chairman's eye before Alison started, because it would help to give some context to Alison's report. And indeed, you get two for the price of one this morning. So we'll go on to talk about key projects in a moment. But firstly, the context of this report, because I appreciate it's a bit of a tour de force of a wide number of subjects that IMT have been engaged in. But the report flows from a conversation with Councillor Parker, in that he felt OSMB were well cited for a number of years on that part of IMT that is delivered via the Circo contract. So, and you've seen within the commercial context the performance of that contract in terms of its SLAs and KPIs and so forth. And you also saw a rather dry presentation of the delivery of the projects that we commissioned into Circo. But he was very much of the opinion, and quite right, that that was only a bit of IMT. Clearly, there were other things going on that OSMB weren't cited on. So this report is a very difficult report in a sense, because it tries to answer that most difficult of questions, what don't I know? And I hope that explains why it's somewhat of a tour de force through such a variety of subjects, as Alison has tried to give you a feel for everything her part of IMT is engaged on. And from there, I'd like to invite any questions.
Councillor Brockway.
There you go. Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, congratulations for a first report. I wonder if we should know if it's an officer's first report so that we can be supportive. It must be ever such a difficult thing to do, so congratulations. Thank you very much for this. I particularly like your use of the blue boxes. I find those very, very helpful, because you're breaking down things into bite-sized chunks, and when you're using IMT or whatever it is, ICT language, it's useful to have that done. I have a question about obsolescence, and I'm going to refer to the boxes on page 63 and 62. One is about PSN compliance, and the other is about telephony enablement. I notice that you're having to migrate or mitigate business risk because of the end of support of the product that we're using at the moment. Now, I understand that with hardware, the laws are changing, or may have already changed, that support has to continue to be available, that this built-in obsolescence has to stop. Is there any hint that it'll go the same way with software? Can I come back? I'll just ask that question first, if that's okay.
So in terms of hardware, the WE Act, the same act that dictates how technology is disposed of in waste disposal, also set expectations of manufacturers on the provision of spares for a reasonable working lifetime. And this covers both actually your consumer goods at home, but also goods provided into the professional market. And all the major brands do respect that legislation, and formally it was enforced by the European Union. However, with software, no. It's very interesting what warrants a paid for upgrade and what is a patch seems to be almost entirely in the gift of the copyright owner. So software companies, I seem to be in a very privileged position, which may explain why they're so profitable.
Thank you. If I could do my next bit, thank you. Before I ask my question, can you tell me what PSN stands for, please?
It's shorthand for Public Sector Network.
Okay.
Confusingly, it can be used in two ways. There is the business of a network, you know, the lights and wires, as it were, and the physical presentation of the network. And then sometimes it means the policies and compliances that flow around your connection to that network. So it's sort of, it turns up in those two forms, as it were.
Okay, I've got it. I can ask my question now then. Okay, on page 62, it talks about PSN compliance, and the indication is that we're functioning on only 43% of our servers. So according to this, it says 57% of the servers are turned off and decommissioned. and that we need to regain PSN compliance, which indicates that we're not PSN compliant. So what is the impact of that, both for our security and, you know, as far as our responsibilities for being compliant are? Thank you.
The percentage relates to the percentage of a certain type of server on a certain operating system. So we have a number of legacy operating systems that we've been working hard on replacing. There's a combination of things that you have to achieve to take that problem away, because very often there is obviously software running on top of a physical server, the physical computer. And then between those two, you've got the operating system, which tends to be where PSN kicks in and sets expectations around the supportability of that operating system from the vendor. So very often when we are replacing either the hardware or that operating system, they tend to come together. We tend to time those so they happen at the same time. It triggers the requirement to change the application, because the application version may have changed to work on that operating system. Am I being clear so far? Because it's very easy to... Then, of course, the problem forks. There are some applications which are funded from IMT, so we're sort of in charge of our own destiny, and we apply that budget and commission that work almost as one, really. You know, we update the application and obviously the server and its operating system in one go. Sometimes the applications are departmental funded. So if the application supports the activities of a subset of the council, a particular department, then it tends to be funded via the department. And then I have to have sort of Kissinger-like skills negotiating them to make that investment, give us the licenses we need to get the software and replace that software, allowing us to move more easily to replace the operating system. Sometimes we break formation and then we have to find a different solution, possibly by taking off the old software, putting it onto, if we can get it to work on newer operating system and physical computer. And that ticks part of the box, but there is still a business risk, which isn't PSN, but the risk of that unsupportability of an old version becomes a business risk rather than a technical risk, if you follow me. So, and often I'm having these conversations and I'm trying to work out if people are talking about the business risk or the technical cyber risk of the underlying platform. So does that answer your question? Sorry it's so long, but it's
Councillor Marthley.
Thank you. Got three things really, perhaps some more, I'd say, more aligned around the practicalities. You talk about this chamber. It's not the most reliable of systems. It collapsed the other day when we had a planning meeting with 20 members of the public in, and then we had to all move out and go into the catering room in the kitchen, and it was all then it couldn't connect through to room one, and it became a bit of a sort of didn't look ideal with all the public, 20 members of the public in. And actually, I've watched the executive live via the, not on Teams. Teams is fine. It was, I came in via the YouTube or whatever it was, and the sound quality was shocking. And even in here, if you don't have this mic near your mouth, I struggle to hear. Unless I put full hearing aids in, I really struggle. And I've missed 80, 70% of what you say. Now, I should put my hearing aid, but every time you turn away, you've gone from that mic. The microphone system is bad. It's actually all right when this place is full, because it bounces off people, and actually the noise isn't so bad. I find when it's smaller numbers, it's actually harder. So that's just a little thing. My main area is a bit about the telephone systems. And we have telephones everywhere. And now that we've gone into, in effect, new ways of working again, and people work remotely, trying to find people now on a phone system is a nightmare, because people are hot desking, people are moving around, and actually it's really quite difficult. In fact, I was trying to get hold of somebody in highways, and it was to do with road safety, and I rang Circo, and it took me basically nearly 30 minutes of getting nowhere. And when they passed me through to Lincolnshire Roads Partnership, they're like, oh, it's full right now, bye. And I was like, well, that's not really good. So I had to go all back through the system again, listening to every bit of rubbish that I didn't really want to hear and just want to sort of get through, and all about data protection, etc., etc., etc. When I eventually got through, they're like, oh, we can't give you the guy's number or anything. And I'm like, oh, I can't. But it's data protection. We can't give anything out. And he's not in. Bye. And it's like, OK, so I didn't get there. So I then rang County Council, and I thought I'll go to our Conservative office. Hello, my name's Leslie Jenner. I'm not in. I'm thinking, well, you left 2 years ago, Leslie. You know, well, you shouldn't even have a voicemail anymore. And I see all these phones on empty desks now, and we've got this telephone system. Last time we revamped it, actually ages ago, I went round when we had properties all over, and there's brand new phones on properties where no one was working anymore. So I think it's the telephone system and what we do really is something that actually we seem to be playing catch up rather than how we address the modern day requirements and how we connect. You know, years ago you used to go 55, 22, 22, and actually somebody would nearly guide you. Now no one knows who to guide where, because there's like phones numbers attached historically without relevance and numbers. So I'd look at the whole telephone system. I think needs a whole up thing. And finally, the thing that really bolts on the end of that is making sure that things are fit for purpose. The amount of times I see IT websites and things that this council do, and then I think, actually, how many people use that? Really? What, 1 or 2? You know, we create apps, we create webs, thinking that we're really good at connecting. But actually, half the time, it's like, well, actually, is anyone really interested? And I think sometimes I would always put, is it fit for purpose? And I know you do like Teams training, and there's been that, which is good. It shows people how to use it. But actually, I wish somebody would say to various people, look at yourself on your picture and see what you're projecting out. The amount of people I see get so close up to the thing talking in it, and I'm like, I don't quite need to see your nose and bits, you know, so that they're just little practical bits. But the telephone thing, I think, is my biggest area that I think is we haven't quite got mastered.
Councillor Pepper.
I won't attempt a full answer to the. There's some very big questions there, but I can assure you we have a very evolved strategy in terms of telephony, and you are quite right. We are very aware of all the points that you make, and indeed we are moving at pace to the next generation of telephony, and there will be a seamless join between using Teams and PSTN telephone numbers, so you won't get that disconnection between those two ecosystems. We can do something in the short term. That has been available since about 4 weeks after COVID broke. It's been used sparingly because we wanted to really see, of the 2,000 odd telephones numbers we'd issued, how many of them were really business critical. We sold 37 call plans for people who really, really needed a non-contact centre telephone number. The contact centre was dealt with differently. They use a soft client, and we can send those people home by using the soft client. So, but I'm more than happy to give you the much longer answer as to how all this comes together. Unfortunately, I can't really dictate how people use the technology so much, and there are quite a few things that look like IMT but are done outside of IMT, but I'll certainly pass your comments on to the teams who manage those things. Thank you.
Apologies I missed you there, John. I apologise. Councillor Pepper.
Oh, thank you. Like Jackie, I do like the blue boxes. That does seem to make things a bit simpler, I feel, rather than loaded text and full stops and paragraphs and whatever. So pleased to see that. But what I really want to talk about was page 75. That's the MDT refresh. The MDT is a mobile data terminal, for those that don't know. It's a bit of a roughy-tufty type laptop. And it's almost as important these days on a fire engine as having water, quite honestly. But the citizen outcome there says that it makes Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue more efficient, information on hand, providing better service to the public, and to me there's one vital ingredient missing there, and that's the health and safety of personnel. It doesn't mention anything there about safety, and that's one of the main reasons of the MDT. the MDT has such information as like where to cut, when they're cutting the roof off a car, where to cut, so they don't cut through a gas strut or something like that and it goes flying off. Or same as chemicals, that they don't mix the wrong chemicals, or even if you put water on some chemicals, it'll make it more volatile. So it's an important piece of equipment for firefighters to have. And it seems a bit vague to me that, I mean, it may be a software renewal or upgrade, but it seems a bit vague and worrying that the project is on hold. One of the main reasons being sickness. I mean, from the outside looking in, it makes you think probably all's not well with Fire and Rescue Service at the moment, because Her Majesty's Inspector for Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services picked up a number of concerns in his latest report, and the closure has gone from my screen now, but the closure date on this was the 1st of November 2021. Now there's no baseline date at all, or forecast delivery dates whatsoever. And for a vital piece of equipment like that, it really needs chasing up and some dates put in there.
May I take that one, John? Sorry, apologies. I can. So basically, yes, apologies. I probably should have put some more information on to hear about this. So the MDT refresh, actually, the core task that needed to happen for that MDT refresh was done at the end of last year. So that bit was done. At the time, the project wasn't closed because the fire service were looking at whether they wanted to bring some additional work into scope of that project. Unfortunately, that person who was scoping that out is off poorly at this moment in time. We will follow up with that and just see whether that still needs to happen. But it is additional work. It isn't actually part of the core of the refresh that was actually happening, if that answers your question. So apologies, I should have put more information onto that.
Yes, it does answer it, but sometimes updates and a refresh are just as important as the actual working tool.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So the actual upgrades themselves have actually taken place. So it is additional work that was being scoped, which we just need to look at to see whether that still needs to go ahead. So apologies for that.
Councillor Wootton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to add my comments as Chairman of the Environment and Economy Scrutiny Committee. A couple of meetings ago, we couldn't start the meeting because there was a breakdown in the way we were trying to get online, and that was highlighted. I think that we should have a dedicated officer here at meetings to make sure that there are no problems before we start. I don't use the phone system because I use Teams. So if I wanted to get hold of you, John, I'd look and see whether you were green, and if you were red, I wouldn't bother you. But as soon as you went green, I'd expect you to answer straight away. So I use that more than phone. And I use that quite often to call Tracy and Nigel, and I think it's a far better system than using a phone.
The wholesale adoption of Teams is beyond our wildest dreams, and COVID has just changed the way we all look at communications and how we contact each other. There are elements of that solution that are outside of council gift. You know, they are sort of global infrastructure, and as we speak now, there are probably 145 million people online on Teams. I mean, it's a huge platform. Of course, some elements of the solution are at our end, and we'll certainly take those comments around the audibility in this auditorium and other rooms, because we are aware that some elements of the audio equipment which weren't replaced and thought fit for reuse, possibly we need to look at that again because of the sort of, there's not enough sibilance on voice to make it easily recognisable, and we are looking at a suggestion that the Wi-Fi system is part of the problem. So it is a somewhat complex number of moving parts, but it's a process of continual surface improvement, really. So.
If I come back, Chairman, the other point I wanted to raise, John, is that this system, this microphone system, is not as good as the previous system, because it's several times that as Chairman, I can't hear what people are saying, and people have to move forward to the mic to make sure that I can hear them.
Point of information, Chairman. Could I come in on that? We have got a problem here this morning. We are noticing that quite a few people can't hear. But with your permission, I'll talk to Ryan afterwards, because there is a way of linking people's hearing aids with the induction loop, and I'm not sure that that's happening. It may be that people just don't know how to link in. because mine link in and the sound is fantastic, but I've only recently discovered how to do that. I'm wondering if this is a training issue rather than an actual hardware issue. So with your permission, I'll go to Ryan and talk to 1 or 2 people afterwards and see if we can get this going. Is that right, John? Is that okay, Chair?
Certainly.
Indeed, I've noticed the background speakers are, I'm really hearing you naturally, not so much you amplified over the system, so we need to look at the balance of that system. Thank you.
Councillor Strangle.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll pick up on what Councillor Ray Wooten has said. I wasn't aware that you could actually contact people through Teams as you can through our telephone system, so I need a bit of training on that, to be quite honest. As you know, Chairman, as a member of my Pensions Committee, everybody hears me because I just speak louder and carry a big stick, and it works very well.
I've got a couple of points from Mayor. Firstly, Alison, apologies, I butchered your surname earlier. I do apologise. My first question is, do we know when the MDM migration will take place for Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue, legal and emergency planning? Because I know it's been a long-standing, not problem, but it's been an ongoing issue to resolve for a long period of time.
Absolutely. I'm going to hand over to my colleague Donna. Unfortunately, Donna hasn't had an opportunity yet to do her report, which I think ties into a lot of the questions you're all asking at the moment. So it might be that Donna just needs to do her presentation, and that might answer a lot of the questions.
Thanks, Alison. Yes, thank you, Chair. So actually, we have been answering questions on the second part of this, so Appendix B, which is the one with all the blue boxes. So apologies for that. This part is my part of the report, which is about the portfolio. So I'm glad that the boxes work, which is good. Just to answer your question, in terms of the MDM project that we have ongoing at the moment. So if I take the services that you've mentioned, so legal, for example, are currently, they have a system which they use, which actually will not function if we take them through the MDM. It is a legacy system that we're looking at, and it's one of the systems that's actually mentioned on one of the other projects on here. We are looking at how we can best replace that system so that we can bring them online. So I don't know at this moment in time what that timescale looks like, but we are closely monitoring that, because we need to make sure that they aren't left behind, but also they're not left on legacy software either. So we'll update that when we next come, because we do repeat this report throughout the year. So I think we're due back in September. In terms of LFR and emergency planning, they are currently in a bit of a hybrid state, because what we're doing is we're bringing them onto the Lincolnshire domain, so they will actually leave their fire domain behind ultimately. There's a lot of planning that's going on behind the scenes to make sure that we do that as seamless as possible for them, and to make sure that they can then access all of the things that come on the 365 tenancy. They have been issued with their usernames in readiness for doing that. We're just trying to finalise some of the more finer points of some of their systems, which when we move them over, we'll need some hand-holding to make sure that as they move to the LCC domain away from the LFR domain, basically minimise any impact to that. So we would hope that within the next couple of months, we'll be able to get LFR moving across as well. So again, we can provide an update with that as soon as those details have been finalised. So,
sorry, John, you wanted to come in.
Yes, indeed. Earlier I referred to departmentally finance software versus corporately finance software, and so legal services use a tool called Norwell, which is a very old piece of software. They did in fact commission a project to replace that with a different product called iCaseworker, but during the implementation at quite a late stage in the project, it became clear to them that it didn't meet their business needs. So they've sort of effectively put that project on hold. So now, of course, we will just await them to select a different solution and procure it, and then we'll be commissioned again. So it's where we're sort of waiting on the business instruction, as it were. So just it's an interesting difference, because it's not something we can just go on and find them a replacement. You know, it's very much in their decision as to what's the right tool for that for their own department. Thank you.
Thank you. This may be more your report, Alison, because it relates to IT staff retention in terms of Circo and tickets. What's been done to aid recruitment and retention of IT staff, or is it rather than a organisational problem, is it a national problem? And obviously we have certain constraints as a local government organisation in terms of what pay scale is, for example, and I know it's a hugely competitive industry in terms of what you can pay, what organisations can pay. And the second is, could officers advise how many more tickets this year have been created compared to an average year, and has the level of VIP incidents increased due to home working, and if so, what's being done to rectify that as best we can, or have things started to calm down in a more sort of natural manner as people have become accustomed to working from home, as was planned from the authority rather than was sort of forced on us from COVID?
Yeah, I'll answer your last question first. Certainly, the amount of incidents has been greatly reduced, so it has come down significantly by at least 30 to 40%. So as we stabilise now, after people have been migrated, we're seeing a business as usual kind of area. So, for instance, at the height of MDM, we might have seen 2,000 incidents in the backlog. We're now right down to 200, which is a normal rate that we would run at. So that has started to stabilise. In terms of the working from home and tickets being raised from that, that is now a sustained level. So over the past 2 years, we have seen that rise from before COVID, and it's the new normal now. So, you know, as people, their network drops or they can't quite connect, they'll phone in, whereas before they would have maybe spoken to a colleague, or they might have just troubleshooted with a colleague next to them. They now phone in to Circo to assist with troubleshooting that way. So that is a sustained level now, and we don't think that will change. In terms of recruitment of staff, I think it's a national problem within IT. People can work from anywhere nowadays, so attracting people to Lincolnshire County Council has been somewhat difficult, particularly in the IT industry. I mean, John might want to comment further on that.
Yes, it's interesting. There's a number of drivers for this, and they're moving in different directions. So there is an increased global spend on IT services, which means people need people to do that work, and so our recruitment has stepped up. I think they estimate a 30% increase in IT spend across the developed economies. Alison mentioned that we've lost staff, for instance, to county councils who are 200 miles away, and they can do that job from Lincoln. So, however, we've also recruited recently staff from outside of area it works in both directions, I guess. And I think in the longer term, it possibly one thing that will help will be the complexity of the job in an organisation like our county council will reduce somewhat as we move out of the business of building large, complex technical infrastructures to more programming and developing business solutions. We will, as we react to the opportunities of cloud services, apart from some Wi-Fi networks and things we need to build in Lincolnshire, everything else is somewhere else, which means we don't need to hire those very specialist technical skills to maintain those very complex infrastructures. So that's a driver that helps us in the right direction. Possibly the other benefit is that we're now joined by other areas of the council, so other departments are having recruitment challenges. We've had them for quite some time, and the council is now at a corporate level, thinking about things like attraction and retention, and we can benefit from that corporate strategy to improve these factors. So, thank you.
I'll over to you, Donna, for your part of the report. I know a lot of questions have already been asked of you before you've had a chance to do that, but if there's anything you want to add that you haven't sort of already covered from questions there, please do.
I think we've covered quite a lot of this. Really, it was. I mean, this is a repeat report, as I've said before, that we've given, just to give a bit of a flavour of the types of projects we're going through. It is originally born from the projects that we commissioned through to Circo mostly. So it is a little bit around the way that Circo are performing. I have to say that they have, despite the fact we have got challenges in resourcing and obviously we've got quite a lot of work that's come through. They have performed, which is great to see. And whilst we do have challenges still, I think whilst the KPI certainly shows that they're maintaining the 100% KPI 11 score, I think on the ground it doesn't always feel as green, but actually we are making progress, and we are moving forward with this, and by the time we meet and repeat this exercise, we'll have a look at that as well, and also be looking at different projects that are being commissioned now to actually replace some of the ones which have closed, to make sure we are giving you a good flavour of the projects that are coming through. So thank you.
Thank you. I've got one more question for me. It's in terms of the stamp replacement, is that a similar issue to legal services, that it's a case of the proposed replacement doesn't offer the functionality that was envisaged, so that a new program's basically got to be found, a new alternative to provide what the department wants and needs, which is why things have been delayed. I'm looking at John and nodding, so I'm assuming that's correct.
That's correct,
sorry, John.
Yeah, exactly that. The business requirements have been redefined, and a different approach is sought, and we await to see how IMT are part of delivering that different solution.
We don't have a timetable for that, do we? Because certainly that one and legal have been going for a while. And I can hear Rob in my ear, metaphorically.
Yeah, we have had I have been part of a preliminary meeting with the service area around stamp replacement. They have got a timescale in mind, which is towards the end of this year. We are obviously needing to look at that to see if that's achievable, and we hope to support them in that. But we are having the initial discussions to set that up to make sure that we get the right solution in to replace stamps. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none. So the actions required of the board are for the board to review and comment on the function and recent activities of IMT, user engagement team, and progress on highlighted projects currently being commissioned through IMT, which we've clearly done. I propose the board has reviewed the report and has been assured of the recent activities of IMT, user engagement team, and progress made on the highlighted projects currently being commissioned through IMT. All those in favour, please show. And that looks unanimous, but I will ask anybody against and any abstentions. That's carried. Right. On to item 11, which is Scrutiny Committee Work Programmes. This item provides an update on the work of the Adult and Community Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee and the Health Scrutiny Committee for Lincolnshire. I would like to invite Councillor Hugo Marfleet, Chairman of Adults and Community Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee, and Councillor Carl Macy, Chairman of Health Scrutiny Committee for Lincolnshire, to present their updates. Firstly, over to you, Councillor Marfleet.
Yeah. Sorry about that, I was just trying to deal with something else. Right, update. Update from the, well, first off, we've had some excellent news, which I'd just like to update you on, which is in relation to our new extra care housing that has been built in Lincoln. at DeWints, which basically has provision for 50 single bedroom apartments and 20 double bedroom, well, as in twin room apartments, for those requiring extra care in the Lincoln area. We had the opening day on Tuesday, and I have to say it is impressive. They've done a really good job. The rooms are great, well laid out, the building and the grounds and everything. It is going to be very special. And the cost savings generated, it looks like it's going to be even better, as some people are coming out from residential accommodation into extra care, and others are coming out giving up, say, a 3-bedroom house to move into a 1-bedroom flat. So there's all sorts of benefits and costs, and it's a great day for Lincolnshire County Council. And I think congratulations to all those involved. Other areas of greatness is obviously the public health arrangement in Greater Lincolnshire, the appointment of Derrick Ward as Director of Public Health, who is currently Lincolnshire's Director of Public Health, but has taken on the responsibilities for North East and North Lincolnshire County Council. And so basically, this is the first time that it now covers the Greater Lincolnshire area. We welcome this because there's further opportunities for these 3 public health services to learn and share good practices with each other, and it starts to create better collaboration and innovation between 3 local authorities. Residential and care and residential and nursing care fees to the providers. There's been quite a lot going on about setting the fees. We have set the fees for a 1-year funding in terms of placing residents into care homes from Lincolnshire County Council. We've gone for 1 year because of all the changes within social care that are coming forward. It's best to just work on a 1-year deal to see the impact to then shape up years 2 and 3 going forward. I'd also like to highlight the hardship fund of £1 million, which is a means of supporting increased utility insurance costs from providers. Both the fees agreed and the hardship fund have been well supported, not only throughout our committee, but also from the chair of Lincolnshire Care Association, Melanie Weatherly, who attended our meeting and spoke on behalf of the Care Homes Association for Lincolnshire. Also not included in the briefing session on the 12th of January, there was the Adult Social Care Reform White Paper, where we did further training, and that has been rolled out to county councillors under the Councillor Development, which is all good news. Other than that, it's everything as planned on the forward agenda items. I think the sort of two sort of the big 3 areas, and they have been the big sort of 3 areas, which is in effect the sort of setting the fees and talking about the other area that we did was the Section 75 agreement for learning disabilities, which is the sort of working with the CCGs and our LPFT colleagues, where we've reached a new agreement where LPFT, we work in partnership and pool fund. That also has been a very good achievement. And I have to say, actually, it's been quite a monumental last 6 weeks for adults, and very good progression. And finally, the Carers Support Service Reprocurement has also gone forward. And that's why when I said at the very beginning on a previous agenda item, signposting, front of house and assessments really are key because they roll through all of these programs. So, but for everything else going forward, it's all on the forward plan. So any questions, welcome. Thank you.
Any questions for Councillor Marfleet at all? Seeing none. Over to you, Councillor Macy.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll take the report as read, and I'd just like to take you to page 87, where I will provide a summary of the outcomes from our meeting only last week. If we can start with item 1, which was the United Lincolnshire Hospitals NHS Trust Care Quality Commission Inspection Report from February 2022. The committee supported the efforts of ULHT in making a range of service improvements, as reported by the Care Quality Commission. The committee also agreed to a further update from ULHT at the 18th of May meeting on its action plan in response to the CQC and its overall recovery programme. Item 2 was the United Lincolnshire Hospitals NHS Trust Nuclear Medicine Consultation. The committee recorded its concerns over proposals which look like leading to yet another service being centralised at Lincoln County Hospital. The committee will be finalising its response to the consultation on the 13th of April. Item 3 was the Community Pain Management Service, and in view of the sustained improvements in the service and positive patient feedback, the committee agreed that no further update reports would be required unless a significant change in performance would merit the committee's consideration. In addition to the above, the committee has established 2 working groups, one to respond to the draft pharmaceutical needs assessment and a second to consider the quality accounts from 3 NHS provider trusts. In relation to the 3 meetings between January and March, I would like to highlight 3 items. A, the finalisation of the committee's response to the Lincolnshire Acute Services Review consultation in January. B, a presentation from East Midlands Ambulance Service to the committee in February, its first since October 2019. And C, also in February, the Suicide Prevention Strategy, where the committee raised concerns about access to mental health services, which will be picked up at our April meeting and could lead to a 3rd working group being set up. I'd also like to highlight our future programme. On the 13th of April, there will be an additional item on finalising the committee's response to the consultation by ULHT on nuclear medicine. On the 18th of May, the whole agenda has now been revised, and we now have 3 items as follow. We have the United Lincolnshire Hospitals Trust response to the February Care Quality Commission report and the Trust Recovery Programme. We also have consultation to the Lincolnshire Partnership Foundation Trust on proposed changes to the Mental Health Rehabilitation Service, and we have the decision by the Lincolnshire Clinical Commissioning Group on the Lincolnshire Acute Services Review. The CCG Board is expected to make a decision on the Lincolnshire Acute Services Review on the 27th of April. As a result, this means dental services update will now be added to the list for the 15th of June, and cancer care and staffing challenges will be added to the 13th of July list. I'm more than happy to answer any questions if there are any, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. So seeing no questions, so we shall move to the recommendations. The recommendations of the board is that the board is requested to determine whether it is satisfied with the activity undertaken since the 16th of December 2021, firstly by Adults Community Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee. So all in favour for that, please show. Seeing none against, but I'll ask any against and any abstentions. And then the same for the Health Scrutiny Committee for the same time period. Any those in favour, please show. Thank you. And I will ask again, any against, any abstentions, and seeing none. The board is requested to determine whether it is satisfied with the plan work programme, again for the 2 committees previously mentioned, that being the Adult Community Wellbeing Scrutiny Committee and the Health Scrutiny Committee. Unless there is any objections from members, I propose to take that on block. So all in favour, please show. Any against and any abstentions? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Finally, and this report is for noting. It is the Overview and Scrutiny Management Work Programme. This item sets out the board's work programme for 2022 and is for information purposes. Unless there's Councillor Wotton.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I know it's for noting only, but some time ago we did have a report on the staff survey, annual staff survey. I don't see it in our paperwork here to the end of the year. Will we be having that this year, or will it be under the page 96, People Management Update? Thank you.
Nigel.
Chairman, yes, it'll be part of the People Management Update.
Thank you, Chairman.
No problem at all. Any further questions? Seeing none, in that case, that now concludes the meeting at 12:05. I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance here in the chamber or on Teams, and wish everybody a safe travel home or wherever they're travelling to next. And I will see you at the next Overview and Scrutiny